Whether you're just in the planning stages of a potential move or have already started packing, we've got a few things to discuss to make sure you're ready for a move to Gainesville. So one of the first topics that we really need to cover is one that I'm normally going to avoid, and that's going to be politics. A lot of people really want to know, though, is Florida and Gainesville just full of ultra-conservatives and Trump supporters, or something else? So here in Florida, we do currently have a Republican governor, but if you look us up, we're technically what you would consider a purple state because we're pretty divided. Now, the majority of the 67 counties here in Florida are going to lean onto the Republican side, but what actually balances that back out is the fact that the larger cities in Florida, places like Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami, all of those cities traditionally lean back towards the Democrat side. So here in Gainesville, the majority of the elected officials traditionally do fall on the Democratic side, but if local politics is something that's important to you, I'd recommend checking out a website like votealachua.com. Over there you can find out a little bit more about upcoming elections and who some of the candidates are and what they stand for. But no matter where you go, local politics can be extremely frustrating. I would just suggest doing some additional research and making sure that Gainesville is a match for what you're looking for. So next we have to talk about the wildlife. You may or may not already know Gainesville definitely has alligators, snakes, and lizards, but in addition to that, there are coyotes, bobcats, and even the occasional bear if you head towards Ocala. I would say don't let the alligators and snakes scare you. They are not running rampant all over the place. It's just one of those things you want to be aware of, especially if you do stuff out in nature. It's not uncommon to see them in the lakes, ponds, any of the swampy areas. That's where they live. But as long as you're paying attention, it's really not that much of an issue. So one of those things I often forget to share with people who are from out of town, and that's going to be the lizards. Now, they're not the huge iguanas that you may see in South Florida, but we do have a lot of them. They're relatively small and pretty harmless, but the dogs and cats love to chase them, so just be aware because they are all over the place. So the next thing that you need to be ready for when it comes to moving to Gainesville is going to be the weather. Of course, you obviously likely know it's going to be extremely hot, but one thing that you need to be prepared for is going to be the humidity. Now, don't get me wrong, it is great not to have to shovel snow during the winter, and I definitely appreciate that every single year. But one thing you need to be ready for is trading out that snow for a ton of sweat. Get ready because anytime during the summer that you go outside, it's going to be hot and muggy. You're always going to be sweaty and honestly a little bit sticky. So definitely be prepared for that and plan accordingly. And we do have a few cooler months. December through February is pretty nice. You're going to see temperatures in the low 40s. It may even freeze a few times during the day. It's typically going to warm back up to the mid 60s, even 70s. And honestly, we've had a few Christmas days where the temperature's in the 80s. And on the flip side, those hotter months are going to be the traditional summertime, June, July, August, where we see temperatures up in the upper 80s and 90s even. But it's really that humidity that makes it a little more unpleasant to do things outside. The other primary concern when it comes to weather in town is going to be the hurricanes and storms. I get asked all the time what it's like during hurricane season, and luckily during my entire lifetime here, we haven't had any real significant storms. Traditionally, Gainesville is not an area where you're going to have to board up windows and worry about that sort of thing. By the time most of the major hurricanes get this far inland and up north, they've diminished dramatically, so you really don't have the same hurricane concerns that you do in other coastline areas. So what actually can be more of an issue than the hurricanes is going to be flooding and sinkholes. Gainesville does have some low-lying areas that when we get multiple storms back to back drop a ton of water, we do get some flooding, and then oftentimes it's not unusual for a sinkhole to open up in and around town. So if you are buying a home in the area, make sure you talk with your insurance agent about flood insurance and sinkhole policies, because lots of times those items aren't traditionally covered in your average policy. Now, one area of Gainesville that's actually changed for the negative is going to be traffic. It does take much longer to drive around town than it used to, but again, traffic is one of those things that's relative, and depending on where you're coming from and what you're used to, it may not be an issue at all. But if you're in areas like Archer Road, Newberry Road, or anywhere around campus, definitely plan to get stuck in some traffic, certainly around those peak hours, around 5 in the evening or 8 in the morning. Things do back up and get pretty congested. And after a couple of years, you'll really start to notice the traffic flow because it decreases dramatically when the students leave town during summer and then will pick back up. But again, It's all relative, and it's just one of those things you need to be prepared to deal with. Now, along those same lines, the next thing you need to be ready for is the overall population in Gainesville. It used to be Gainesville was known as just a small, sleepy college town, but that has really changed. Over the last 10 years, we've seen an almost 10% increase in the population. Now, of course, compared to Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, we're still a relatively small town, but before you know it, Gainesville will have a population over 150,000 people. Now, of course, the University of Florida, Shands Hospital, and all the amazing medical facilities are a big part in what's leading that growth in our population, but more so, it seems like every single day, more people are just realizing Gainesville is a great place to live and a great place to raise a family. It's really the perfect combination of big and small, and honestly, there's enough to do to keep almost anyone busy. Now, after helping tons of people relocate to Gainesville, there's one thing that comes up far more than anything else, and that's the bugs. So unfortunately, Gainesville does have all sorts of bugs that you need to be ready for. We've got mosquitoes, cockroaches, spiders, love bugs, and some of the cockroaches, they actually fly. So the love bugs you may not be as familiar with. There's actually an old rumor that they were created on campus in a UF genetic lab, but about twice a year for 2 weeks, they'll come out and they are everywhere. They're quite the nuisance. They'll cover your car and create a huge mess. Now you're probably still thinking about those flying cockroaches, right? Those are actually called palmetto bugs. They do look similar to a cockroach, except when you go to kill it, it'll probably fly straight for you. Honestly, these aren't major issues. If you go ahead and set up regular pest control service, this is basically a non-issue. Wow, if you've made it this far, you must be really serious about moving to Gainesville. And if that's the case, what you'll want to do next is go ahead and watch this video where I drive you around town and share with you exactly what you can expect if you're moving to the area.